What are we talking about today, Brain?
Same thing we talk about every day, Pinky, Upwork.
And freelancing, and more specifically,
Upwork proposal samples and how to write an Upwork proposal. All right, guys. So welcome into the Morgan Mix. I am Morgan Overholt. I am a freelance graphic designer, blogger, and I have earned over $500,000 on Upwork. I also run an agency called Morgan Media LLC, and she's the mix.
I'm the mix. I'm Elena O'Neill. I help Morgan out with her freelance ventures. I contract with her, and I have my own LLC as well.
Yep. And she blogs with me as well. She's my partner
Mhm.
on our blogs. All right. So today, guys, we are going to be talking about a really popular topic. It's one of the most popular topics on my blog at morganoverholt.com. We're also going to link it in the description if you want to read the full article for yourself. But it talks about how to create a winning Upwork proposal. And that is essentially, and it goes by a few different names. Some people call it the cover letter proposal. We'll kind of use those terms interchangeably throughout this little video. So keep that in mind. And specifically, we're going to be offering you 11 tips today. These are real things that I do personally when I write Upwork cover letters and proposals to win big jobs on the platform. And then at the very end, we're also going to talk about kind of how that all comes together. And of course, if you want to see that for yourself, because it's a little easier to like see this stuff than it is, to like hear it and have to memorize exactly all the little things you have to do, you can just click on that link in the description where I posted a full sample. And this really is like, by the way, guys, this is the stuff that I really use, the tips and tricks. And some of this is almost verbatim what I include in my proposals. So this is like some hot stuff right here. All right.
Yeah, it's stuff that you've kind of taught me to use and I've used as well. And it seems to work.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So tip number one, and we'll be getting Elena's feedback on this too, since she's sort of been my unwilling student. I've got to drug her in.
I've been a willing student.
Yeah,
you didn't force me into it.
That's true. That's true. All those years ago, I appreciate the faith when I said, "Hey, do you want to freelance? hey, what do you think about quitting your job?"
I was slightly terrified, but best decision I ever made.
Terrified but willing, more accurate. All right. So tip number one, this is where a lot of people I see get tripped up. Keep it short and sweet. To be honest with you all, I also hire on the platform every once in a while. I look for other designers, subcontractors. I also look for people with just expertise I don't have, like maps. I'm navigationally challenged, so I always like hire out to do maps usually. Stuff like that. Like I'm not great like character-based illustrations. Like all of us have our gaps, right? So every once in a while, I also hire on the platform, and I cannot tell you how many times I get proposals that are like a novel. It's like chapter 1, and no, ain't nobody reading through that. These clients are on Upwork. They're probably getting, like 50 to 100 different proposals and cover letters on every job that they post. And so if you've written a book, odds are they ain't gonna be reading it. In fact, I recommend keeping your your proposal at about 200 words or less.
Yeah, I was just thinking it's kind of ironic. Our first tip being short and sweet, because we're just talking about keeping this short and sweet in a way, but sometimes less is more. And I think that especially when you're getting just inundated with requests, especially if it's one of those like tasty looking jobs, it's going to probably generate a lot of interest. And so you kind of just want to find a way to grab their attention and do it quickly, and get your point across quickly, because if you write a novel, they're probably not going to read the whole thing.
Hey, think about it this way. Since you're likely watching this video on YouTube right now, think about how many times you get frustrated when you start a video about like, I don't know, how to do something on your car, how to like install a windshield wiper. And they're like, hey guys, welcome to my channel. Here's like 10 minutes about me and my day and what I had for lunch. You usually like fast forward and get really frustrated, right? And you know why they do it? They're trying to increase their ad revenue and the length of the video, but it's also really annoying. And typically we just kind of like, okay, all right, move it along. So grab your client's attention and get into the goods pretty quickly. All right.
Yeah. Get to the meat.
Get to the meat. All right. And by the way, I had burritos for lunch in case you want to know. All right.
There's no meat. There's no meat in that.
All right. So tip number 2, it is use the client's name whenever possible. I use this quote, Elena, because I love it. Dale Carnegie once wrote, "A person's name is to that person the sweetest, most important sound in any language." And typically what I do is I like to start my proposals with their name. I'll be like, hey, Elena, how's it going? Instead of hi there or to whom it may concern. In fact,
Mhm.
I actually prefer a more semi-casual greeting than something that's a little bit overly formal. It seems a little bit less canned. And if you're looking for a tip on how to find that customer's name, typically you can actually go into their previous work history, which is usually located like somewhere below the job listing. And you can see their reviews that freelancers have left them. And a lot of times the freelancer will leave their name or include the name in the review. So it's a quick little cheaty way. If you can't find it, hey, how's it? Hey there, how's it going? Or whatever you want to say is perfectly fine.
Mhm.
But if the name is there, use it.
Yeah, and also a caveat to that, make sure you spell it correctly. I know that one thing that really kind of bugs you is when people call you Megan, or
Oh my
sometimes, my name being Elena, I get any variation of that in the world. I think it's,
Eliana.
yeah, Eliana, Alina, Elaine. Like, if there's any doubt, probably go more generic than get it wrong.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I think that goes a long way for sure.
Yeah, that irks me so much. I mean, when people call me Megan, like, I mean, the name Megan is fine, but it's not my name. It drives me
Mhm.
crazy when people are literally staring at my name on the screen and they still say
And they
Megan.
still, and just a little attention to detail. If you can't get the first thing right off the bat right, not a good sign.
Yeah, exactly. Precisely. All right, number three, display your understanding of requirements and an interest in the work. This is also really important. A lot of y'all are out there and you're just doing the whole copy and paste proposal thing, right? I get it. It takes time to write a proposal. You can't do a
Mhm.
fully custom thing for every single job, especially not at the rate that newbies have to apply for jobs to really find success in the platform. Because usually it takes a lot of applying to get that first job is like its own full-time job, right? That's a different video for a different day, but also
Mhm.
located on this channel. So poke around. But basically, though, you really want to make sure, even if you are using that template, kind of, and this is kind of what I do, that you're still acknowledging this individual job. So, for instance, like I have a baseline template that I use for all of my proposals, but in that proposal, I still have entire sections of that proposal that are sort of meant to be replaced, where I reference specific details in the job, where I say, hey, like I've read through this and here are like three, points I want to call out or specific questions about the proposal, or at least an acknowledgement that I've read the proposal and can cite specific details. Because some of these proposals that your clients are receiving are so very generic that it makes you wonder if they even read the job, understood it, or are at all qualified. Again, like Elena just said earlier, with the attention to detail, I can't tell you how many times in a job posting for me, when I post as a client and I say, hey, look, I need this ebook to be like 24 pages long or something like that, to use as an example, right? And every single time somebody will reply or send in a cover letter, how many pages long is your ebook? Or they won't even reference an ebook at all. And I just sit there and think, you didn't read anything. Attention to
Mhm.
detail. How do I know
Mhm.
you're going to pay attention to the project if you can't even pay attention to the proposal? It's easy to stand out in the crowd if you just put in the extra effort. Elena, you recently had an experience like that, didn't you?
Yeah. Where I live, it's a big military community and rentals are very, very popular. Um, Everybody wants to be in a rental house. And so it's the kind of market that if you apply same day, I was told that one house, first day it was on the market, had 50 applications within 24 hours. I eventually learned that I had to, you know, say, hey, look, here I am. I got, great credit. I can offer you more money. Like I had, just find some way to stand out. And I know that maybe not everybody can do that in that specific situation, but, when you're applying for jobs, you have to figure out, okay, what's everyone else going to do? And what can I do to stand out? And what can I do to kind of give this person confidence that I can do this and I understand the requirements and I can do it quickly? And just make sure you instill that in that person's head.
And the second that you did that, Elena, the second that you started like writing about what, going above and beyond what the requirements were of the application, what happened?
I got a house. I got a
Yeah.
house. I missed out on the first few houses that we applied for because we just did the basic what everyone else does in the world, and the houses were selling like hotcakes, and and it wasn't until I finally kind of tried to figure out a way to stand out that I finally got a house.
Yep. Don't
And
do
that's
it.
just renting, by the way. I know the buying market is crazy right now, but apparently also renting is also pretty competitive.
Right. Yeah. Just be a standout. Don't do the basics or the minimum. Do the extra thing. It's amazing how very few people actually go above and beyond. So a little bit goes a long
Mhm.
way. Next, throw in a compliment. This is tip number 4, by the way, if you're keeping track out of 11. Throw in a compliment. People, we are suckers for that. I don't care if you say you're not, it works. Do try to be genuine. People can read whether or not you are being nice, genuine about that. But like, just think about how if you went out to the grocery store right now and somebody's like, wow, I love your haircut. Wow, I love that your blazer. Where did you get it? Or it's a great handbag or whatever. I'm only making like, girl references here, but you know how it feels when somebody gives you a compliment, right? So think about that with your clients. I'm a sucker for that. Again, when people apply for jobs I post on Upwork, they're like, "Oh, I saw your website or I read your article in Business Insider and it was so inspiring." I'm like, "Ooh, higher." Like I'm a moth to a flame for a compliment and I cannot help it.
I think it also goes to the point of paying attention, because a lot of these people could be small business owners. They just want to know that you're looking at what you're going to be doing, and if you take 2 seconds to go to their website, figure out what kind of business they are, get a feel for their branding, a little bit honestly goes a long way.
Yeah. And the example that I've written here, just to kind of give you an idea of the kind of compliment that I might give a client if I were applying for a job, is wow, I love your company's mission of achieving sustainability. It's an important aspect of my life as well. I also love your branding. Your tagline made me laugh. So there you go, something like that. Or your tagline made me smile. So just kind of think about something like that, how, and it also kind of makes you more, endears you to the project. Number 5, list your professional qualifications. So after you acknowledge the details about the job post and you display an interest in the work and you compliment your client, then you may begin briefly talking about yourself. And also notice that like our first few tips were a lot more about what, we're about the client than it really is you. Like we're doing a lot there before we actually launch into ourselves. That also grabs your attention. Again, when you're watching a YouTube channel, do you really care about what I'm doing today? No, you're here because you want to learn about Upwork proposals. Let's get into the meat of it. All right. Think about that with your client too. They care less about you. They care more about the project and what you're going to do for them. Um, think about these questions if you're looking for tips on exactly what to say about yourself. Again, don't, it doesn't have to be super personal. They just want to know why you're qualified to do this job. So I usually include things like how many years of experience do I have? Do I have any degrees or certifications? I actually rarely list my degree, but if it's relevant, you can. Have you won any awards? Have you worked in a similar project? Do you have any past work from a similar niche that you could talk about? Have you been part of any massively successful projects recently? Have you worked with any impressive clientele? Do not be afraid to name drop. That matters.
Yeah. And also keep number 1 in mind. Keep it fairly short and sweet. I think a lot of those questions can be condensed into 1 or 2 sentences.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll read the example that you have listed here. I'm a graphic design guru with only 20 years of experience. I've worked with nationally recognized clientele on a daily basis, including the Centers for Disease Control, QuickBooks, and Kimberly-Clark.
Mm-hmm.
You want to say my freelance business has received national recognition, including a Gold Digital Health Award for my work in the CDC and features in Business Insider.
See?
So basically, you've answered a lot of those questions, and it only took you, what, 3, 4 sentences?
Yeah.
So you still want to keep it short and sweet, but just kind of power pack those couple sentences with as many of those qualifications as you can fit in.
Love it. Number 6, include a unique selling point about what makes you special and what makes you the best fit for the job. And if you can't come up with one, I also have some suggestions here too. All right. Because I know unique selling points are always a hard sticking point. In fact, when I was just first starting out and as a freelancer and I was pitching this job, I had a client email me back and he's like, well, what makes you unique? What makes you different than all the other graphic designers? And I was like, I don't know. Like, I use Photoshop, dude. Do you want me to do the project or not? Like, I had no idea how to answer the question. So here's some guidance on the topic. First, how do you provide how do you provide value to your clients on a regular basis? Like, so for instance, I would say something like, I work in this niche all the time. In fact, one of our most recent campaigns was even featured on Amazon's bestseller list for 3 months. Like, how many other people could say something like that, right? Like, literally one of our clients, this is not even an example, this is real life. Like, one of our biggest clients on Upwork actually has the number one selling electric scooter brand on Amazon right now. So if I were applying for a job that had anything to do with like an Amazon product or marketing or ECT materials, I would just say, hey, look, I'm already working with like top sellers on Amazon. I know exactly how to get the job done. So that's a unique selling point. Another question: what do you do better than most? Kind of goes back to the thing we just talked about, right? How can you improve your client's business? So again, talk about how you can improve their bottom line, how you can make the project better, how you can, make them money, get them exposure, whatever their goal may be. And then how can you make your client's life easier, right? At the end of the day, that's the real reason we're all hiring freelancers. Heck, that's the reason we hire anybody. You just want somebody else to do it. I'm telling you, my life has improved every year. I've hired somebody to help me with something. Like, from the time I've hired Elena to help me work in media, I started getting my life back. From the time I hired an accountant to do my taxes, I fought less with my husband over the taxes and started saving money because I didn't know what I was doing. And that kind of stuff. I hired a housekeeper for the first time in my life a few months ago. That's been a game changer. That like literally bought me time, and they say you can't buy time. So, talk about how you're going to make your client's life easier by picking up this torch for them and taking it to the finish line. That'll really kind of, I think it's a huge selling point. We're bumping along here today, guys. Usually we're longer winded. I'm like, let's go. Number 7, include a link to an offsite portfolio or your Upwork profile. I actually recently had to change this one, and I'll tell you why here in a second. But so I always tell people that, again, I think the Upwork UI, the interface, is a little bit confusing for the client, especially if they've never used it before. There's just a lot going on. You don't really know what you're looking at. So I'm a really big fan, and the portfolio attachments I think are kind of clunky. Gosh, they're practically unusable on mobile, to be honest with you. Like, it's really, really hard because each attachment pops up on like a second browser, and it's just hard to see anything unless it's in like a specific format. So I always tell people to include a link to either your Upwork profile, because it's much easier to scroll through the portfolio on your Upwork profile than is those attachments, especially if your client's on a mobile. And also make sure you've got a pretty robust portfolio on your profile. Again, we talked about that in another video about how to set up a profile properly with a robust portfolio. Or link to, and the reason to link to an Upwork profile is because even though it is naturally linked, again, most clients don't really understand what that link goes to or like how to find it. And it's just an extra click for them. So just make it easy on them by putting it in there. Or link to a landing page. So for years, I preached about including a link to your website, until I was sitting in an Upwork meeting the other day, and they're like, yeah, you can't link to your website if your website has a contact form or an email address, because it's against the Upwork terms of service. All right. So I'm altering this a little bit, and I also have a workaround. So stay tuned. So now I tell people to link to like more of a landing page or an offsite portfolio that doesn't have an email address. It doesn't have a contact form. Basically, Upwork just doesn't want you taking work off of the platform. They say it's for your security. Sure. But they just don't want you taking work off the platform. All right. Love you, Upwork, but I see you. Let's be honest, call a spade a spade. So you can do that. Like, if you're like me, I would just create an extra page on my website with a different URL, like a landing page that just had that portfolio, and maybe even a link again on the website back to my Upwork profile. So you kind of create that, like, funnel, if you will, back to where they need to go. And that makes it really easy for people to kind of see your stuff. And then I have a workaround as well. Would you like to hear it?
What's your workaround, Morgan?
All right. So I have a little bit of workaround. All right. So it's not perfect, and it does rely more on SEO. But I also recommend to end, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, but I recommend to end every proposal with your full name. Not like your middle name, just like, don't be creepy, but like your, just your first and last name. Because if you're like me, I'm extremely Googleable, right? And it's not against Upwork terms of service yet to use your full name in the proposal. And so if somebody did want to learn more about me and just happen upon my LinkedIn or happen upon my full website, where I really, which is super robust and would sell anything, could sell ice cubes to an Eskimo, they could Google me, who's to stop them? Again, I don't take clients off the Upwork website. That's not the purpose of that. The purpose is just to like impress the socks off my client.
Yeah, don't get yourself in trouble there. And also, I think Morgan Overholt, you are probably more Googleable than the average person. If your name is like John Smith or something, that may not do you a whole lot of favors.
True.
And again, keep in mind the goal is not to take the client off of the platform. The goal is to impress the client and make it easy for your client to find more work that you've done, more portfolio pieces, and make that as easy as possible for them, and also stay in alignment with the Upwork terms of service.
Yes, always stay in, oh, do not bite the hand that feeds, always stay in alignment. The other thing you can also do, because I was talking about how difficult those attachments are earlier, especially for clients on mobile devices, and most of us are just doing stuff on mobile nowadays. You can also attach a multi-page proposal, or I'm sorry, a multi-page portfolio, which is what I usually do. Instead of like attaching 50 different, things to the proposal, I just create one PDF. And if you don't know how to do it, you can hire a freelance graphic designer to do it for you. I just create one PDF that's multiple pages long, one download, one click, and has a variety of portfolio samples. And that works a little bit better. Still clunky, I think, in a lot of ways, but better. One day, Upwork feature request, I really hope that they just kind of like include a more visual portfolio for that client at the end. Like when you attach stuff, it creates a gallery that you can just see instead of having to download the files, especially now. I know it's clunky for like some file types like Word and stuff, but for the more visual stuff, I wish they would offer their option there, but that's a conversation for a different day. So moving right along, include relevant portfolio examples. This will be a really quick topic, but Elaine is super guilty of this one. Did you ever change that, by the way?
No, because I'm not looking for more work right now. Stop trying to give me more work.
Elaine is pretty
But
busy.
if I was looking for more work, then absolutely yes, I would be implementing this yesterday.
Because a lot of people, they have very, very limited portfolio examples, both on their own portfolios, on the Upwork portfolio. They only attach like one thing to the proposals. Like, y'all, we want to see what you could do, especially if it's relevant work. So please, use the most relevant work possible. Provide as many examples as you possibly can. Again, this can be a real standout from the crowd, because you'd be shocked at how many people are like, yeah, I could totally do this. I'm a graphic designer too. No attachment. I'm like, what? Well, how do I know then?
Yeah, you just want to prove it to your client. And also, I think it gives them peace of mind, especially, some people kind of specialize in a certain, type of design work. So they just want to know if it's an ebook, they want to know that you can do an ebook, or,
Yeah.
just give them something a little bit more specific.
Yeah, and imagine how frustrating it is. Because again, I see this all the time. If I'm looking for an ebook and somebody just attaches business card examples, well, do you do ebooks or do you not do ebooks? Like, I need
Yeah.
to know you kind of do the thing I'm asking for. That'd be helpful. So keep
Yeah.
that in mind.
And again, it's just taking that like couple more seconds to, tailor your, proposal to your client, and just give them the reassurance that you're paying attention.
It's scary hiring people on the internet, y'all. I imagine it's kind of like online dating. I can't attest to that since I'm a dinosaur, and the online dating wasn't quite as popular back in my day. But
Did you ever do online dating, Morgan?
I was
Not to
like,
get off on a tangent.
I did Plenty of Fish for like 6 months, and it was a horror show. But that was back before we had like smartphones, so it was like full browser, and I don't know, it just wasn't the same. But yeah,
Okay.
terrifying. But I'd imagine, right? Like, so you were on Tinder, right? You met your husband on Tinder.
I did.
Again, not to get off on a tangent, but I'm sure you met a great guy. You had a great result, great client. But you also probably had a lot of
Been a great
creeps.
client.
You probably had a lot of creeps and a lot of weird messages, right?
Not as bad as some of the horror stories that I've heard nowadays, but once again, the first impression is everything. So you don't want to start off like being weird or not saying anything, or it's all about grabbing that attention and making sure that you're paying attention. The first thing Steven did, actually, my husband, he gave me something to correct. That's probably not like
He mansplained to you.
no. He let me womansplain to him. Because my picture was like wake surfing, and he's like, "Oh, I like your wakeboarding picture," knowing that it was in fact wake surfing. And so he wanted me to correct him. And that was kind of like his in. Like it was like a compliment and something for me to correct. Because he knew that if like he said something basically that I would want to respond to, that would be kind of his in, and it totally worked because he was right away. I was like, thank you. Also, it's wake surfing, not wakeboarding.
See now, and that will lead us to our final point here in a minute. So let's keep that in mind because it's actually quite clever. It's literally what I recommend you do at the end of your Upwork proposal as well. Moving on to number 9, ban passive phrases from your vocabulary. This is another thing I see
Ooh,
people do all of the time. Elena.
this is like my favorite tip that you offer, because this is something that I implement, I think probably more than anything else, even just writing an email, not even necessarily a proposal. But I have, and I'll even still type it sometimes. I think I will, I believe, and then I backspace, I go back and I try to say something more confident. I love this tip.
Basically, I say, instead of using phrases like, I think I can do it, I feel I can do it, I believe this project will be successful, I should be able to complete this project. Don't say any of that. That suggests a lack of confidence. Instead, say, I will do this project. I am capable of doing this project. We will knock this out of the park. That kind of stuff. It just portrays so much more confidence rather than saying, I should be able to do this project. I can do this project. Do you see the difference in those two phrases? So ban all those passive phrases. And if you're like Elena and you need to take some, if you need to take some practice on that, write it out and then go back and delete. That's a good tip.
And I think it makes such a big difference too, just the way that you structure your sentences, the way that it sounds to the reader. I think it makes a huge difference, but it's a hard habit to break.
Yeah, for sure. And you're right too. It's also a good thing to keep in mind outside of Upwork. Everyday communications, especially for women, we tend to kind of think undercut ourselves
Yeah,
a little bit too
absolutely.
much. Men have that natural confidence they seem to, at least a lot of men do. I shouldn't stereotype, but all right. Number 10, almost to the end. If you're new to Upwork, tackle the elephant in the room. So I did this all the time when I was brand new on Upwork, because it is really hard to get jobs when you have no reviews whatsoever and nobody knows who you
Mhm.
are and you have $0 earned. And so I always just told people, look, hey, while I'm new to Upwork, I'm a veteran in the graphic design industry. I've got 20 years of professional design experience. Like, you don't got to worry about a thing, darling, basically. And I think that kind of just puts it out on the table. You're like, yeah, I'm new. So,
Mhm.
but here's why I'm awesome. So take a chance on me. Let's go. Just, be honest about the situation. I found that to be pretty successful. In fact, my second ever job, Elena, was, and you'll know the client, it's the thyroid health company that we work with all the time. And they were
Uh-huh.
my second ever client on Upwork. And would you know that when I applied for that job, they were looking for somebody with 100 hours of Upwork experience. That was literally in their requirement. And I
Wow.
applied with 0 hours of Upwork experience. And I was like, look, I don't have it because I joined the platform, this week, but
Mhm.
I am going to be the best person you could possibly hire. And I've now worked with them for 5 years. They
Yeah.
took me on. So it makes a
And
difference.
that's such a level of confidence. It's going back to, just giving your client like that level of like, I feel good about hiring this person.
Mm-hmm.
And you can address that in just one quick sentence. The example that you have, while I'm new to Upwork, I'm a veteran in graphic design industry with almost 20 years of experience.
And then finally, the thing that your husband was so good at on Tinder is it's like, yeah, we should do like, be a funny video in the future. We should do like a how Upwork is like Tinder. there's there's a lot of similarities, I think. But again, I don't know. You could comment on that more than I can. But I always say that no proposal is complete without an effective close. All right. And I suggest ending with 3 things: a call to action, a question, and your full name, which I kind of touched on a little bit earlier. You want to think about, all right, we're coming to a close here. What do you want your client to do next? Do you want them to reach out to you for more information? Do you want them to contact you for more details? Make sure that this ask that you are asking of your client is 100% clear, and most of the time they will follow suit. For
Mhm.
instance, I would say something like, go ahead and shoot a quick message to me here on Upwork so we can chat more about yourself in the project, right? I'm specifically telling them what I want them to do next.
Mhm.
um, I also like to include a question with my call to action. It's sort of subtly, like, I wouldn't exactly say use the Elena's husband example and say something wrong on purpose
Right.
professionally, but do tempt them into replying to you. One of the questions are like, so for example, I might say something like, by the way, how'd you guys come up with the title of the book? It's so clever. Or what program did you use to create that? Blah, blah, blah. It's so interesting. I've been looking for something like that. I don't know, whatever seems relevant. Some ask some kind of question and they can't help themselves. They'll want to
Yeah.
reply to it. And
Yeah.
have
And
some
maybe,
time.
have a simple question. I think, how did you come up with the title? It might be like kind of a long answer, but just something that they can quickly answer, that they'll want to answer. If you can figure out that, that's where your gold is, I
Oh
think.
man. Starting that dialogue is like most of the game. You know, if you can start the
Mhm.
dialogue, you've kind of got them in. It's like having the fish on the line. You just got to like reel at
Yeah.
that point, you know. It's harder to like
Yeah.
find the fish.
Yeah. So true.
Get the fish
And I
to
think
pay
that
attention
part,
to you.
and that part really is similar to online dating, not to get too far off on tangents, but it's all about just, what can you do to make that person reply to you?
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes it's half the battle, especially when people are getting a bunch of requests or, whatever. And it's hard to pick someone else out from the crowd. Just, think, have that little bait out there.
Finally, again, I mentioned this earlier about the cheaty way too. It does rely on you being fairly Googleable. Elena is right. But if you are Googleable at all, then I would include some way to actually kind of, put yourself out there. Like I always end every proposal with Morgan Overholt. And the second you Google Morgan Overholt, like the whole, I think, first page and probably second page now of Google is me. So pretty easy to find. So if you have any kind of online presence, I think that's a really good way to sort of, put yourself out there. So that way, if your client wants to scope you out and make sure that you're legit and that you're a good person, you know what you're doing, you've got, the work experience, that's a good little way to do it, until Upwork bans that too. Honestly, if you're comfortable, if I wasn't as Googleable as I was, I would probably do something like Morgan Overholt, Miami, Florida, Morgan Overholt, Knoxville, Tennessee, something like that. And I know it gets a little bit creepy, but your location's listed anyway. So it's not like you're giving away information that people can't see on Upwork. And that would definitely put it over the top, about being able to find you. If you felt like that would be an extra selling point. Some people don't have an online presence. And if you don't, completely ignore that tip. But I'm just saying, sometimes I like to do my homework on freelancers. I'll do that. I look to see if I can
Mhm.
find them online. So I just think it's an extra little benefit. I like to feel good about the people I'm hiring, make sure they're legit,
Oh yeah. I mean, to go back to my moving example. I was Googling our broker person to make sure, because there's so many scams going on.
Mm-hmm.
So you just kind of want to make sure that that person, exists in the real world and that they're
Yep.
legit.
Exactly. And your full name doesn't pop up in your profile unless you actually write it in a proposal. So, all right. And so to give you an idea of how it all comes together, I'm going to read it to you really quick. I wrote this little example for you guys, but I know it'll be easier if you just click on the link in the description so you can see it. Maybe we could put up on the screen in the video edit so they can follow along. But here's my example. Hey, Kent, I have to say this job really stuck out to me. I'm a perfect fit for this project. I'm a regular consumer of these kinds of products, and ebook design happens to be my forte. I'm curious, what brought you to Upwork? A bit about me. I'm a designer with nearly 20 years of professional experience. I've worked with nationally recognized clientele like the CDC, Centers for Disease Control, Yogi T, and Kimberly Clark. I'm also expert vetted, which means I'm ranked among the top 1% of professionals in my field on this platform. That's the unique selling point, see? I pride myself on my ability to offer rapid turnarounds and quality products to my clients, and I would like to do the same for you. I'm attaching a multi-page portfolio to this proposal. You can view additional work samples at morganoverholt.com/Upwork portfolio, which doesn't have any contact form on it. Go ahead and shoot me a quick message here on Upwork so we can chat a bit more about yourself and your project. I'm also happy to answer any questions you might have about my services. I'll be at my computer the rest of the day. P.S. How did you guys come up with the title of the book? It's so clever. Morgan Overholt. And believe it or not, that is less than 200 words. Or actually, it might be 200 exactly.
Actually, I was going to fact check you. So I plugged it in and it is 211. So you're very clse. Because I
Oh,
was
very
looking
close.
at that and I was like, that looks long.
211. So I need to cut 11 words out. Duly noted.
Because I know going through all these tips and stuff, and our first one is keep it short and sweet, and then we go like 10 other things you should mention. I know. But it is possible, but you just want to like power pack that 200 words and address everything that you possibly can. And
Yep.
it's doable.
Make sure every single word that you select is pulling weight. All right, guys. So that concludes our Upwork proposal tips and our Upwork proposal samples. We hope that you find that helpful. Let us know in the comments. Also, if you've got any questions, make sure you drop them below, and we will do our best to answer as many as we possibly can. As always, make sure to follow along for additional tips on this channel and on my blog. Hit the like and subscribe button, or however that works on YouTube. I don't know. I'm new here. And then also make sure to follow me on social media. It's at Morgan O Media on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
What are we talking about today, Brain?
Oh, today, Pinky. Well, I have a sit up.